This is a small video on human security. So, the introduction. In its broadest sense, human security refers to the security of individuals rather than of state. As such, it contrasts with national security, which is invariably linked to states and military power. The main threats to security deriving from the aggressive behavior of other states. The notion of human security was an attempt to broaden and deepen the concept of threat influenced by ideas such as human development, an idea that can be traced back to the 1994 UN Human Development Report and to the doctrine of human rights. So, what does human security mean? The essence of human existence lies on security and survival. Human security is an emerging paradigm for understanding global vulnerabilities whose proponents challenge the traditional notion of national security through military security by arguing that the proper referent for security should be at the human rather than national level. The central theme of this approach is that human security deprivations can undermine peace and stability within and between states, whereas an overemphasis of state security can also be detrimental to human welfare. The state remains a central provider of security, but state security is not a sufficient condition for human welfare. In contrast to the traditional forms of security, that is, the state and its institutions, alliances, borders, territories, and weapons, the human security focuses on the individual and well being of individuals. A job to live in dignity, access to food, water, healthcare, education, especially for girls, giving them a voice and choice to serve their own security and the basic necessities of life. The significance of human security. Many important aspects of human development relate also to people's security, loosely defined as people's freedom from fear and freedom from want. In a broad sense, human security relates to much more than security from violence and crime. Human security is an approach which emphasizes on the multiple threats faced by the people. This approach was introduced in the 1994 Global Human Development Report of the United Nations. The human security approach broadens the scope of security analysis and policy from territorial security to the security of people. It identifies and addresses widespread and cross cutting challenges to survival, livelihood, and dignity of people. Two major components of human security are freedom from fear and freedom from want. This school seeks to limit the practice of human security to protecting individuals from violent conflicts while recognizing that these violent threats are strongly associated with poverty, lack of state capacity, and other forms of inequities. This approach argues that limiting the focus to violence is a realistic and manageable approach towards human security. Assistance, conflict between prevention and resolution, peace building are the main concerns of this approach. While freedom of want advocates a holistic approach in achieving human security and argues that the threat agenda should be broadened to include hunger, disease, and natural disasters because they are inseparable concepts in addressing the roots of human insecurity and they kill far more people than war, genocide, and terrorism combined. Central to the approach is the idea that people have the right to live in freedom and dignity, free from poverty and despair, with an equal opportunity to enjoy all their rights and fully develop their human potential. The 1994 HDR specified seven essential dimensions of human security: the economic security, the food security, the health security, the environmental security, the personal security, the community security, and the political security. So, The economic security. Economic security requires an assured basic income for individuals, usually from productive and remunerative work, or as a last resort from a publicly financed safety net. In this sense, only about a quarter of the world's people are presently economically secure. While the economic security problem may be more serious in developing countries, concern also arises in developed countries as well. Unemployment problems constitute an important factor underlining political tensions and ethnic violence. The food security. Food security requires that all people at all times have both physical and economic access to basic food. According to the United Nations, the overall availability of food is not a problem. Rather, the problem often is the poor distribution of food and a lack of purchasing power. In the past, food security problems have been dealt with at both national and global levels. However, their impacts are limited. According to UN, the key is to tackle the problems relating to access of assets, work, and assured income. Health security. Health security aims to guarantee a minimum protection from diseases and unhealthy lifestyle. In developing countries, the major cause of death traditionally were infectious and parasitic disease, whereas in industrialized countries, the major killers were disease of the circulatory system. Today, lifestyle related chronic diseases are leading killers worldwide, with 80% of the deaths from chronic diseases occurring in low and middle income countries. According to the United Nations, in both developing and industrial countries, threats to health security are usually greater for poor people in rural areas, particularly children. This is due to malnutrition and insufficient access to health services, clean water, and other basic necessities. Environmental security. Environmental security aims to protect people from the short and long term ravages of nature, man made threats in nature, and deterioration of natural environment. In developing countries, lack of access to clean water resources is one of the greatest environmental threats. In industrial countries, one of the major threats is air pollution. Global warming caused by emission of greenhouse gases is another environmental security issue. Personal security. Personal security aims to protect people from physical violence, whether from the state or external states, from violent individuals and sub-state actors, from domestic abuse or from predatory adults. For many people, the greatest source of anxiety is crime, particularly violent crimes. Community security. Community security aims to protect people from the loss of traditional relationships and values from sectarian and ethnic violence. Traditional communities, particularly minority ethnic groups, are often threatened. About half of world states have experienced some inter-ethnic strife. The United Nations declared 1993 the year of indigenous people to highlight the continuing vulnerability of the 300 million Aboriginal people in 70 countries as they face a widening spiral of violence. Political security. Political security is concerned with whether people live in a society that honors their basic human rights. According to a survey conducted by Amnesty International, political repression, systemic torture, ill treatment, or disappearance was still practiced in 110 countries. Human rights violations are most frequent during periods of political unrest. Along with repressing individuals and groups, governments may try to exercise control over ideas and information. A brief criticism. Critiques of human security tend to argue either that it has so deepened and widened that the concept of security that is virtually meaningless, particularly as it extends beyond freedom from fear and includes freedom from want, or that it creates false expectations about the international community's capacity to banish violence and insecurity.